The Clone Wars had taught the galaxy many lessons about the nature of warfare. But nothing could have prepared it for what emerged from the screaming wound in space above Christophsis. The planet's crystalline spires caught the light of the system's sun as Republic forces dug into defensive positions against the Separatist siege. But every sensor suddenly pivoted skyward as reality itself seemed to tear open. What the Republic's long-range scanners initially registered as a hyperspace anomaly quickly resolved into something far stranger. A massive, angular vessel, tumbling through a coruscating vortex of energies that shouldn't exist. The Union-class dropship Emerald Sword hadn't meant to arrive in this universe at all. One moment, Captain Marcus Reed and his mixed lance of inner-sphere mech warriors had been aboard their jump ship, preparing for a routine transit in the periphery. The next, alarms screamed as their dropship was violently sheared away from its parent vessel and hurled through a kaleidoscope of impossible colors. Now the Emerald Sword, a 4,000-ton military transport bristling with aerospace fighters and 4 operational battle mechs, hung in orbit above an alien world locked in a war it didn't understand. "Damage report," Marcus barked from the bridge, his weathered hands gripping his command console as the ship's artificial gravity fluctuated. Through the reinforced viewports, Christophsis rotated beneath them, its surface scarred with what looked like active combat zones. "Fusion reactors stable at 98%, his chief engineer responded, her voice tight with controlled panic. "KF drive is..." "Captain, the Kearney Fuchida drive is completely offline. Whatever that transit did, we're not jumping out of here without major repairs. Structural integrity holding. All 4 mechs in their bays, fully operational. Ammunition stores intact." Marcus felt the weight settle onto his shoulders. A drop ship without a jump ship was effectively stranded. They could maneuver in system with their fusion drives, but interstellar travel was impossible. Below them, massive wedge-shaped vessels that looked nothing like any dropship or warship he'd ever seen moved into orbital positions. Their weapon signatures were unknown, but definitely active. "Incoming transmission," his communications officer announced. "Multiple sources. They're not using any Comstar protocols I recognize, but the computer's translating. Captain, they're demanding our immediate surrender to something called the Galactic Republic." "Belay that response," Marcus ordered, his tactical mind already working. "Launch a reconnaissance fighter. I want to know what we've landed in the middle of, and get our mech warriors to their machines. If those ships decide we're hostile, I want teeth ready to bite back." In the Emerald Sword's mech bay, 4 towering war machines stood in their deployment cradles, mag-locked and ready. At 70 tons, Lieutenant Sarah Chen's Warhammer stood ready, its paired PPCs and medium lasers capable of carving through armor at range. Beside it, the 80-ton Awesome, piloted by veteran Marcus Gunner Kowalski, bristled with 3 PPCs, a walking lightning storm. The Assault Lance's anchor was Lieutenant James Rivera's 100-ton Atlas AS-7D, the iconic battle mech that had terrified battlefields for centuries with its AC-20 autocannon and SRM racks. Rounding out the Lance was the 55-ton Shadowhawk piloted by Scout Officer David Park, fast enough for reconnaissance, but tough enough to stand in a brawl. "All pilots, this is Reed." Marcus's voice crackled through their neuro-helmet speakers. "We've got an unknown situation. Multiple ships in orbit, unknown hostiles on the planet's surface, and no jump capability. I need you ready to launch on my command. Rules of engagement: defensive only until we understand what we're dealing with. But if they come at us, you show them why you don't pick fights with mech warriors." Lieutenant Chen ran through her Warhammer's startup sequence, feeling the fusion reactor's familiar hum vibrate through her command couch. 60 years of refined technology, 200 tons of armor and weapons between her lance. They'd faced worse odds in the Succession Wars, but never in a completely unknown galaxy. On Christophsis' surface, Clone Commander Stone watched his holoprojector with growing confusion. The new vessel in orbit wasn't broadcasting separatist codes, and its design matched nothing in Republic databases. General Skywalker was going to want to see this. "Sir," one of his troopers reported, "General Skywalker and General Kenobi are inbound." They felt something strange. A disturbance in the Force, they said. Stone nodded, still watching the angular ship through his macro binoculars. Whatever had just arrived in their war, it was big, heavily armed, and completely unknown. In the Clone Wars, that usually meant trouble. He just didn't know yet whose side the trouble would land on. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. May the Force be with you. Above Christophsis, the Emerald Sword completed its initial scans of the system. What Captain Reed saw made his blood run cold. Orbital platforms, thousands of ships, weapons technology he didn't recognize, and energy signatures that defied every principle of warfare he'd learned. But the fusion reactor hummed with steady power, his mech warriors were ready, and the Emerald Sword had survived worse than being lost. They'd survived because they were warriors, because their battle mechs were the finest war machines ever built, and because surrendering had never been in the Mech Warrior Codex. "All hands," Marcus announced across the ship-wide comm. "We're a long way from home, and I won't lie to you. We're in deep trouble. But we're also 4 fully operational battle mechs, a military-grade drop ship, and the best damn crew in the inner sphere. We'll figure out where we are, we'll figure out how to get home, and we'll do it the way mech warriors always have. By standing our ground and making anyone who challenges us regret it. Read out." In the mech bay, 4 fusion reactors pulsed with power, their heat signatures blooming across every sensor in orbital space. The galaxy far, far away was about to learn what happened when Battletech came to visit. The Republic Venator-class Star Destroyer Resolute established high orbit alongside the unknown vessel within the hour. Its turbo-laser batteries tracking the strange ship while maintaining a cautious distance. On the bridge, Anakin Skywalker studied the holographic projection with barely contained curiosity, while Obi-Wan Kenobi stroked his beard thoughtfully. "It's unlike anything in our databases," Admiral Yularen reported, gesturing to the tactical display. "The hull composition appears to be standard Durasteel variants, but those heat signatures... Master Jedi, those power readings are enormous for a ship that size. 4 distinct energy sources, each one putting out enough radiation to power a small city." "Fusion reactors," Anakin muttered, though he didn't know why the words came to him. The Force whispered around this ship and its occupants in strange ways, not dark, not light, simply absent. Like trying to sense a droid, but these were clearly living beings aboard. "Obi-Wan, do you feel that? Or rather, don't feel it?" Obi-Wan replied quietly. "Yes, Anakin. Whoever is aboard that vessel, they're invisible to the Force. Not shielded, simply not there. In all my years, I've never encountered anything quite like it." "Sirs," the communications officer interrupted. "We're receiving a response to our hails. Audio only, but it's coming through clearly now." Captain Marcus Reed's voice filled the bridge, professional and measured. "This is Captain Marcus Reed of the Union-class dropship Emerald Sword, currently operating under salvage protocols due to catastrophic transit failure. We are not affiliated with any local government or military force. Our vessel experienced a critical drive malfunction, and we have no current ability to leave this system. We are not hostile, but we are armed and will defend ourselves if threatened. To whom am I speaking? Anakin stepped forward, nodding to the communication station. This is General Anakin Skywalker of the Grand Army of the Republic. You've arrived in the Christophsis system, currently under siege by separatist forces. Captain Reed, your ship's power signatures are drawing attention from both sides of this conflict. For your own safety, I recommend you bring your vessel down to the planet's surface under Republic protection while we sort out your situation. There was a pause. When Reed responded, his tone carried the weight of a man making tactical calculations. General Skywalker, with respect, we're combat veterans who've been fighting wars since before your clone troopers were decanted. We'll maintain orbital position until we have a clearer picture of local politics. However, we're willing to discuss mutual non-aggression and information exchange. Your forces don't fire on us. We don't fire on you. Obi-Wan leaned closer to Anakin. Confident, aren't they? For a ship that just admitted to being stranded. They're military, Anakin replied, respect creeping into his voice. Professional, military, not conscripts or droids. And did you catch that? Before your clone troopers were decanted. They somehow know what our troops are. On the Emerald Sword, Marcus reviewed the tactical data his recon fighter had gathered. The situation was worse than he'd feared. A galaxy-spanning war between a democratic republic and a separatist alliance, both sides fielding armies that numbered in the millions. The Republic used clone soldiers and what appeared to be warrior monks called Jedi, who wielded some kind of energy swords and psychic powers. The Separatists used droid armies and had corporate backing. It was the succession wars all over again, but on a scale that dwarfed anything the Inner Sphere had seen since the fall of the Star League. Captain, his XO reported, we're getting multiple approach vectors. 3 Republic troop transports requesting permission to come aboard for diplomatic discussions. They're not painting us with targeting sensors, but they've got escort fighters on standby. Marcus considered his options. They needed information, supplies, and eventually a way to repair their KF drive or find whatever phenomenon had brought them here. That meant dealing with the locals. Grant permission for 1 transport, maximum 3 personnel. They come aboard unarmed, and we meet them in the cargo bay, not anywhere near the mech bay or critical systems. Get Lieutenant Chen down there in her cooling vest. I want them to see a mech warrior up close. The Republic Elayat gunship that docked with the Emerald Sword carried Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Clone Commander Stone. The moment the airlock cycled open and they stepped into the drop ship's utilitarian corridors, all 3 felt the difference. The air was hot, warmer than any Republic vessel maintained, and carried the metallic tang of machinery and oil. The walls were bare metal and exposed conduits, built for function over comfort. Captain Reed met them in the cargo bay, flanked by Lieutenant Chen and 6 armed crew members carrying what Anakin immediately recognized as projectile weapons, slug throwers, rarely seen in a galaxy that had long since moved to blasters. Reed himself was a weathered man in his 50s, wearing a gray and green uniform with rank insignia that seemed military but matched no known service. Lieutenant Chen was younger, perhaps 30, with the lean build and alert eyes of a career soldier. Her uniform included what looked like a cooling vest studded with tubes, and she carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd seen extensive combat. General Skywalker, General Kenobi. Reed greeted them formally, extending a hand in what appeared to be a universal gesture of greeting. Welcome aboard. I apologize for the temperature. Fusion reactors run hot and we maintain environmental systems for efficiency, not comfort. Obi-Wan shook his hand, noting the calluses and strength in the grip. Captain Reed, thank you for receiving us. I must admit, your vessel and your presence here raise many questions. I imagine we have just as many questions for you, Reed replied. He gestured to a portable holotank that his crew had set up, primitive by Republic standards, but functional. Lieutenant Chen, display tactical overview. The hologram that sprang to life showed a star chart that matched no known region of space. Anakin leaned forward, fascinated despite himself. Where is this? The inner sphere, circa 3025, Chen replied, her voice crisp and professional. 5 successor states locked in nearly 300 years of constant warfare following the collapse of the Star League. We were conducting a reconnaissance mission in the periphery when our jump ship experienced catastrophic failure. One moment we were in our universe, the next... She gestured around them. Here, wherever here is. You're claiming to be from another reality entirely? Obi-Wan asked carefully. I'm claiming that we were somewhere else, and now we're here, and the star charts don't match anything in our databases going back to the Age of War. Reed replied bluntly. Call it another reality, another dimension, or we jumped so far that we're outside known space, the effect is the same. We're stranded until we can repair our Kearney Fuchida drive or find another way home. Commander Stone had been silent, but now he spoke up. Sir, they're weapons. Those aren't blasters. Correct, Chen confirmed. Autocannons, particle projection cannons, lasers, missiles. All kinetic or directed energy weapons designed for battlemech combat. Which brings us to the elephant in the room. She pulled up another hologram, and Anakin felt his jaw drop slightly. The image showed a humanoid war machine standing 30 feet tall, bristling with weapons and armored in what the data labeled as 11 tons of standard battlemech armor. The designation read, Warhammer WHM-6R. This is a battlemech, Chen said simply. A 70-ton fusion-powered war machine. We have 4 of them in our mech bay. They're the reason your sensors are reading those power signatures. Each one has a fusion reactor capable of sustained combat operations for years without refueling. And before you ask, yes, they're fully operational, and yes, we know how to use them. Anakin exchanged a glance with Obi-Wan. The Force still provided no insight into these people, but everything they said carried the ring of truth. And if those machines were as powerful as Chen suggested... Captain Reed, Anakin said carefully, you've arrived in the middle of a war zone. The Separatists will want your technology. They use droid armies and are always seeking new weapons. The Republic would appreciate your cooperation, but we won't force it. What are your intentions? Reed met his gaze levelly. General, in my universe, we have a concept called salvage rights. When you're stranded in hostile territory, you do what you need to survive. We'll defend ourselves and our ship. We'll consider alliances based on mutual benefit and honor. But we don't surrender. We don't hand over our technology, and we don't let anyone dictate terms to us. If your Republic can help us repair our drive or find a way home, we can discuss compensation. If you can't, he shrugged, then we'll figure it out ourselves. A mercenary approach, Obi-Wan observed, not critically, but analytically. A survival approach, Chen corrected. We're mech warriors, General Kenobi. Where we come from, you earn your honor in the cockpit, you fight for your house or your employer with everything you have, and you don't leave your lancemates behind. Those 4 battlemechs in our bay represent centuries of warfare refinement. They're our way home, our livelihood, and our legacy. So yes, We'll defend them with our lives, if necessary. The meeting continued for another hour, with both sides carefully sharing information while guarding secrets. By the time Anakin and Obi-Wan returned to the Resolute, they had a clearer picture. A military vessel from another reality, stranded and desperate, but professional and disciplined. Dangerous, but not hostile. At least, not yet. "The Council needs to hear about this," Obi-Wan said as their shuttle departed. "Beings invisible to the Force, weapons technology we don't understand, and those machines, and they're right in the middle of our siege," Anakin finished. "Master, the Separatists are going to make a move for that ship. We both know it." On the Emerald Sword, Captain Reed watched the Republic shuttle depart and turned to his crew. "Opinions?" "They're idealists fighting a losing war," Chen said bluntly. "Their clone army is impressive numerically, but they're stretched thin. The Jedi are warriors pretending to be peacekeepers. And there's something else. Did you see how Skywalker looked at the hologram? He understood the machines on an intuitive level. That one's dangerous." "Agreed," Reed nodded. "But they were honest with us, and they didn't immediately threaten or try to seize our ship. That counts for something. Still, we can't afford to pick sides yet, not until we understand the full picture. Lieutenant, I want your Warhammer on Ready 5 status. If someone makes a move on us, I want our response to be immediate and overwhelming." Chen smiled grimly. "Understood, Captain. They wanted to see what a mech warrior looks like. Maybe it's time they see what a battle mech can do." The Jedi Temple on Coruscant gleamed in the planetary city's eternal twilight. But the Council Chamber's atmosphere was anything but serene. Anakin and Obi-Wan stood in the center of the circular room while 12 of the Order's most powerful members considered their report via hologram. Master Yoda's ears twitched thoughtfully, while Mace Windu's expression remained its usual mask of controlled concern. "Invisible to the Force they are," Yoda mused, his gamer stick tapping softly against the stone floor. "Troubling this is. Never before encountered such beings we have. Yet darkness in them you sense not." "No, Master," Obi-Wan confirmed. "They're simply absent, as if they exist outside the Force's touch entirely. But their intentions seem genuine. They're stranded soldiers seeking a way home, not conquerors or dark side agents." Mace Windu leaned forward, his hologram flickering slightly. "You said they have 4 war machines, each powered by fusion reactors and heavily armed. Skywalker, you examined their technical specifications. How do they compare to our walkers?" Anakin's enthusiasm broke through his attempted Jedi calm. "Master Windu, they're beyond anything we've built. Our ATTEs are 22 meters long and weigh 80 tons, impressive siege vehicles. But their battle mechs are humanoid, half that size, and the heaviest one masses 100 tons. It's more maneuverable than any walker we field, armed with weapons that can vaporize heavy armor, and its fusion reactor gives it effectively unlimited operational range. The pilot, the mech warrior, is neurally linked to the machine through something called a neurohelmet. It's not just a vehicle, it's an extension of the warrior's body. And they have 4 of these machines." Plo Koon's synthesized voice added concern to the discussion. "Each one crewed by what Captain Reed called veteran mech warriors. General Skywalker, in your tactical assessment, how would these machines fare against our forces?" Anakin hesitated, but honesty won out. "In open terrain, against conventional forces, a single battle mech could hold off a battalion of battle droids. Maybe more, depending on ammunition reserves. Against clone troopers." He paused. "Our men are excellent soldiers. but they're trained to fight droids and organic opponents. Those machines have armor that can take sustained heavy weapons fire. It would take artillery, air support, or... He glanced at the council members. Or Jedi to bring one down. And even then, it wouldn't be easy. The council chamber fell silent as the implications settled over the assembled masters. Finally, Ki-Adi-Mundi spoke. Then we must ensure that the Separatists do not gain access to this technology. If Count Dooku or the Techno-Union acquired even one of these battle mechs to study and replicate, the war would shift dramatically in their favor. Mace finished grimly. The Trade Federation's droid armies are already overwhelming our forces, through sheer numbers, if they had quality to match quantity. He shook his head. We need to secure that drop ship and its crew, peacefully if possible. And if they refuse? Obi-Wan asked carefully. Master, Captain Reed made it clear they won't surrender their vessel or technology. They're warriors with their own code of honor. Trying to force them could make enemies of beings who might otherwise be neutral or even friendly. Yoda's eyes closed in contemplation. Much pride these mech warriors have. Earned through battle, their honor is. Respect this, we must. Yet right, Master Windu is. Allow the Separatists to claim such power, we cannot. There may be another option, Obi-Wan suggested. Captain Reed mentioned they're operating under salvage protocols and are open to alliances based on mutual benefit. What if we offered them Republic resources to help repair their drive system? Engineers, raw materials, whatever they need. In exchange, they provide military consultation or limited assistance against the Separatists. Hiring mercenaries? Mace's tone carried disapproval. The Jedi don't employ soldiers of fortune, Kenobi. They're not mercenaries in the traditional sense, Anakin interjected, coming to his master's defense. From what I gathered, mech warriors fight for houses, noble families, or for salvage rights and honor. It's more like a warrior culture than simple guns for hire. And Master, they have knowledge we need. Their universe has been at war for 300 years. They might know things about sustained conflict that could help us end this war faster. The discussion continued for another hour, with various council members offering perspectives. Some, like Shak Ti, advocated for a cautious diplomatic approach. Others, like Kit Fisto, suggested offering the mech warriors Jedi protection in exchange for technical knowledge. Throughout it all, Yoda remained silent, his ancient eyes distant. Finally, the Grand Master spoke. A decision the Council will make after meditation. But young Skywalker, General Kenobi, maintain contact with Captain Reed, you will. Goodwill, establish. Trust, build. The Force may not touch these warriors, but honor does. This we can work with. As the council session ended and the holograms faded, Anakin and Obi-Wan found themselves alone in the chamber. This is going to get complicated, Anakin muttered. When isn't it? Obi-Wan replied with a slight smile. But there's something else troubling you. I can feel it. Anakin nodded slowly. Those battle mechs, Master. The way Lieutenant Chen described piloting one. The neural interface, the complete unity between warrior and machine, the raw power at your fingertips. I understand it. Maybe too well. And I can't help thinking what would happen if someone like me, or worse, someone like Dooku, got their hands on that technology. Which is why we need to ensure that doesn't happen. Obi-Wan replied firmly. Come. We have a dropship to befriend and a siege to manage. Knowing our luck, the Separatists are already planning their move. Obi-Wan's instincts were, as usual, correct. Aboard Count Dooku's personal Providence-class destroyer, the elegant Sith Lord studied holographic projections of the Emerald Sword with intense interest. Beside him, Wat Tambor of the Techno-Union's vocoder buzzed with barely contained excitement. The power signatures alone suggest revolutionary reactor technology. Tambor's mechanized voice crackled. If we could acquire even one of these fusion reactors, the Techno-Union could produce droid armies with individual power supplies. No more vulnerable reactor ships, no more limited operational ranges. Each battle droid could fight indefinitely. And the war machines themselves? Dooku asked, his cultured voice hiding the dark currents beneath. Beyond anything the Republic currently fields? General Grievous rasped, his mechanical body leaning over the tactical display. The cyborg general's yellow eyes burned with hunter's instinct. Humanoid design suggests superior maneuverability. Heavy armor, directed energy weapons, projectile systems we haven't seen since the Mandalorian Wars. Count Dooku, I want to face these mech warriors in combat. I want to add their machines to my collection. Dooku smiled thinly. In time, General. But first, we must acquire one intact for study. Wat Tambor, how long would it take your engineers to reverse engineer one of these battle mechs? Months for basic understanding, perhaps a year for full replication capability, Tambor calculated. But the technology could revolutionize our droid armies. We must obtain a specimen. The Republic will try to secure the vessel diplomatically. Dooku mused, his mind already working through possibilities. Skywalker and Kenobi have already made contact. They'll offer protection, resources, Jedi friendship, all the idealistic posturing the Order specializes in. His eyes glinted with dark amusement. But what if we offered something more practical? These mech warriors are stranded, desperate. They need repairs, supplies, and a way home. What if the Separatist Alliance could provide all of that, with fewer strings attached than the Republic's bureaucracy? You wished to recruit them. Grievous sounded skeptical. I wish to give them options, Dooku corrected. Let them see that the Confederacy of Independent Systems represents freedom from Republic corruption and Jedi manipulation. We're practical beings fighting for legitimate corporate and planetary rights. We don't deal in mystical force powers or clone slave armies. We offer fair exchange, our technical expertise and resources for their cooperation. And if they refuse, his lightsaber hilt shifted slightly at his belt. Then we take what we need by force. The Jedi will defend them, Grievous warned. Let them try, Dooku replied softly. I'm curious to see how Kenobi's lightsaber fares against 70 tons of walking armor and particle cannons. Initiate your plan, General. Offer Captain Reed a diplomatic overture. Appeal to his mercenary pragmatism. But have your forces ready to strike if negotiations fail. I want at least one battle mech captured intact. As Grievous departed to organize the operation, Dooku reached out through the Force to his master on Coruscant. The response came swiftly, Darth Sidious's presence touching his mind across the light years. You have sensed the disturbance, my apprentice. Sidious's voice echoed through their connection. Yes, my master. Beings outside the Force's touch. Technology from another reality. It represents both opportunity and threat. Indeed, these mech warriors could tip the balance of our carefully orchestrated war. The Jedi Council is already debating their response. We must ensure that neither side gains too much advantage, not yet. The war must continue, Dooku. But this technology, study it, learn from it. When the time comes to establish the Empire, such weapons could prove useful. As you command, Master. The connection faded, leaving Dooku alone with his thoughts. The Clone Wars had been proceeding according to plan. Palpatine manipulating both sides, the Jedi slowly being drawn further from their principles, the galaxy growing weary of conflict and ready for decisive leadership. But this new element introduced chaos into careful calculations. Still, chaos could be useful, and the dark side whispered that these warriors, invisible to the Force, might be useful pawns in the game between Sith Lords. The question was, did Captain Reed and his mech warriors realize they'd just become the most valuable pieces on the galactic chessboard? The transmission arrived during the Emerald Sword's third day in orbit, broadcast on a tight beam channel directly to Captain Reed's command frequency. The voice that emerged was refined, educated, and carried the weight of aristocratic authority. Everything Marcus had learned to distrust during his years fighting House Leo's machinations. Captain Reed, I am Count Dooku, representing the Confederacy of Independent Systems. I hope this message finds you well. I understand you've already spoken with the Republic, and I wanted to ensure you heard all perspectives before making any decisions about your situation. The Separatist Alliance would very much like to extend our hospitality and discuss mutually beneficial arrangements. Unlike the Republic, we have no Jedi mystics or clone armies, simply practical beings seeking fair exchange between sovereign entities. I believe we could help each other greatly. Marcus replayed the message 3 times, analyzing every word, every pause, every subtle emphasis. His XO, Commander Lisa Park, watched over his shoulder with equally suspicious eyes. Thoughts? Marcus asked. Corporate representative dressed up in noble clothing, Lisa replied immediately. The message is smooth, professional, and hits every trigger point for someone in our situation. Fair exchange, mutually beneficial, practical being. It's a recruitment pitch wrapped in diplomatic language. The Federated Commonwealth used the same approach when they were absorbing Free Worlds League border states. Agreed. But he's not wrong that we need to understand all factions before committing to any alliance. Marcus pulled up the intelligence his recon flights had gathered. The Separatists control roughly a third of this galaxy's inhabited systems. Corporate backing means industrial capacity, shipyards, factories, technical expertise. If anyone could actually help us repair the KF drive, it might be them. If they're willing to share instead of just stealing our tech, Lisa countered. Captain, everything we've learned suggests the Separatists use droid armies, autonomous war machines with no human operators. That's borderline AI, Marcus. After the jihad against thinking machines in our history, you want to negotiate with people who mass-produce intelligent robots? It was a fair point. The succession wars had inherited the Star League's absolute prohibition on artificial intelligence after the Amaris coup. The idea of armies of intelligent, autonomous machines made every mech warrior's blood run cold. But Marcus also remembered the First Succession War, when desperate commanders did terrible things in the name of survival. We listen to what they have to say, Marcus decided. But we do it carefully, with full precautions, and we don't reveal anything about our KF drive or battle mech specifications that they couldn't already guess from sensor scans. Arrange a meeting, neutral ground, and have Lieutenant Chen's lance ready for immediate deployment. If this is a trap, I want overwhelming firepower on standby. The meeting was arranged for a separatist diplomatic station in the Christophsis system's outer reaches, far enough from the planet to avoid Republic interference, but not so remote that the Emerald Sword couldn't retreat quickly. Marcus took a small security detail. Commander Park, Lieutenant Chen, still in her cooling vest, and 4 armed crew members. They arrived aboard one of the dropship's small craft, to find a surprisingly elegant facility that wouldn't have looked out of place hosting corporate negotiations on Solaris 7. Count Dooku met them personally in a conference chamber that managed to be both functional and luxurious. The elderly man moved with a warrior's grace despite his age, and Marcus's instincts immediately flagged him as dangerous. The curved metal hilt at his belt looked ornamental, but something about the way Dooku carried himself suggested that weapon was far more than decoration. "Captain Reed, thank you for accepting my invitation." Dooku greeted them warmly, gesturing to seats around a polished table. "Please, be comfortable. I know you've had rather a challenging few days." That's diplomatic phrasing for catastrophically stranded in an alien galaxy. Marcus replied dryly, taking the offered seat but ensuring his back wasn't to any doors. "Count Dooku, your message suggested the Separatist Alliance could help with our situation. I'm listening." Dooku smiled, appreciating the directness. "Straight to business. Excellent. I respect that. Captain, let me be frank. The Republic you've encountered is a failing democracy drowning in corruption and bureaucracy. They'll promise you assistance, certainly, but everything comes with strings attached. The Jedi will want to study you, their Senate will debate your status for months, and their clone army leadership will view you as either assets to exploit or threats to contain. I've seen it countless times." "And the Separatist Alliance is different?" Chen asked skeptically. "Fundamentally so, Lieutenant." Chen, Sarah Chen. "Lieutenant Chen, the Confederacy represents thousands of systems that chose to leave the Republic's corruption behind. We're governed by practical corporate interests and local planetary governments. When we make an agreement, it's based on mutual profit and clear terms, not political posturing." Dooku activated a holodisplay showing technical schematics. "We've analyzed your ship's capabilities from long-range scans. Fusion reactor technology far more efficient than our own hypermatter reactors. Unknown drive system that somehow tears through dimensions. Weapons systems we don't fully understand. You have knowledge worth more than entire star systems, Captain Reed." "Knowledge you want to buy," Marcus stated flatly. "Knowledge I want to trade for," Dooku corrected smoothly. "The Techno-Union has the finest engineers in the galaxy. We have shipyards that could manufacture components to your specifications. We have resources, raw materials, and most importantly, time. We're not fighting a desperate defensive war like the Republic. We can dedicate facilities to helping you repair your vessel and return home." Marcus exchanged glances with Lisa and Chen. The offer was tempting, devastatingly so. They were stranded with a damaged KF drive that would normally require a shipyard and months of work. The Republic had stretched resources and a war to fight. The Separatists were offering exactly what they needed. "What do you want in exchange?" Marcus asked carefully. "Technical cooperation," Dooku replied. "Allow our engineers to study your fusion reactor design, not disassemble it, simply understand the principles. Share knowledge of your manufacturing processes. Perhaps demonstrate your battle mech's capabilities in controlled conditions. In return, we provide repair facilities, raw materials, engineering support, and safe harbor while you're in this galaxy. When you're ready to leave, you part ways with the Confederacy as friends and allies." "And if we refuse?" Chen asked pointedly. Dooku's expression remained pleasant, but something cold flickered in his eyes. "Then you remain stranded, hunted by both sides of this war, with limited resources and no path home. Captain, I'm not threatening you. I'm stating reality. The Republic will try to control you through moral obligation and Jedi manipulation. We're offering honest partnership between professionals." Marcus stood, signaling the meeting was over. "Count Dooku, I appreciate the direct approach. Give us 72 hours to consider your offer and discuss it with my crew. We don't make decisions this important hastily." "Of course." Dooku rose smoothly, but as Marcus turned to leave, the Count's voice stopped him. "One more thing, Captain. The Republic hasn't told you everything about their war. Those clone troopers? They're slaves, bred for combat and conditioned to obey without question. The Jedi claim to be peacekeepers but serve as generals in a war of conquest. And the democracy they're defending?" He shook his head sadly. "It's already dead. They just haven't admitted it yet. We fight for freedom, the freedom of systems to govern themselves without Republic interference. I thought you should know what cause you'd truly be supporting if you side with them." The return flight to the Emerald Sword was silent until they were safely aboard and the small craft secured. Then Commander Park let out a long breath. "That was probably the most dangerous negotiation I've ever witnessed," she said quietly. "And I once watched you haggle with a clan galaxy commander over salvage rights." "Dooku's smart, ruthless, and playing a long game," Marcus agreed, heading directly to the bridge. Everything he said about the Republic could be true, propaganda, or a mix of both. But he's right about one thing. We need to understand who we're dealing with before we commit. "Captain," Chen interjected, "I don't trust him. There's something wrong. I can't put my finger on it, but every instinct I have says that man is more dangerous than he appears." "Agreed," Marcus nodded, "which is why we're not making any deals yet. But we can't ignore that he has resources we desperately need. Commander Park, I want a full security audit of our systems. If the Separatists have been scanning us, assume they've planted listening devices, or worse. Chen, get your lance ready for deployment drills. If either side decides to take us by force, I want us ready to light up the sky." What none of them knew was that General Grievous was already positioning his fleet for exactly that contingency. Dooku had made his diplomatic overture, but the Separatist alliance had learned long ago that sometimes the most direct path to acquisition was simply to take what you wanted. And 400 battle droids were about to learn what it meant to face a fully armed and operational battlemech lance. The distress call came from Ryloth 3 days after the Separatist meeting, transmitted on Republic military frequencies with desperate urgency. Commander Stone's voice crackled through the Emerald Sword's communications array, barely audible over weapons fire and explosions. "Overwhelming numbers, clone positions being overrun, request immediate." Static consumed the transmission before it cut out entirely. Captain Reed stared at the tactical display showing Ryloth's position. A Twi'lek homeworld under Republic protection, currently being hammered by a renewed Separatist assault. His crew watched him, waiting for orders. They'd maintained careful neutrality for days, gathering intelligence, running combat drills, and avoiding commitment to either faction. But now, the Republic forces that had treated them with professional courtesy were dying, and every mech warrior instinct screamed at Marcus to act. "Captain," Commander Park said quietly, "if we deploy to Ryloth, we're choosing sides. The Separatists will consider it a hostile act." "I know," Marcus replied, his jaw tight. "But those are soldiers down there fighting for their lives. We're mech warriors, Lisa. We don't stand by and watch warriors die when we have the power to help. Not when they've shown us honor." He turned to his comm officer. "Get me General Skywalker, and someone wake up Lieutenant Chen's lance. They're about to see real combat in this galaxy." Anakin Skywalker's hologram materialized within minutes, his face streaked with dirt and his expression grim. "Captain Reed, I'm guessing you've intercepted our situation." "Your clone commander's distress call, yes. General, my tactical analysis shows your forces are outnumbered 4-1, and you're facing encirclement. You need heavy fire support, and you need it now. The Emerald Sword can provide." Marcus paused, then added, "Consider this a field test of our capabilities and a gesture of goodwill. No strings attached, yet." Relief flashed across Anakin's face. "Captain, if you're offering what I think you're offering, we'll take any help we can get. The Separatists committed 3 times the forces we expected. We're holding the capital city, but barely. What do you need from us?" "Clear landing zone, coordinates for primary enemy concentrations, and your forces to stay out of our firing lanes. General Skywalker, you're about to see what a battlemech lance can do. Read out." The Emerald Sword's drop-ship bay was organized chaos as 4 mech warriors sprinted to their machines. Lieutenant Sarah Chen reached her warhammer first, climbing the ladder to the cockpit with practice speed. The neurohelmet settled over her head, its sensors linking directly to her brain's neural patterns. As the fusion reactor came online, she felt the familiar rush of connection. 70 tons of armor and weapons becoming an extension of her body. Reactor online, sensors online, weapons online, all systems nominal, she reported, running through her checklist with mechanical precision. Around her, the rest of the Lance completed their startups. Gunner Kowalski's Awesome powered up with 3 times the heat signatures, its trio of PPCs drawing enormous power. James Rivera's Atlas AS-7D stomped forward in its cradle, the 100-ton assault mech making the entire bay shake. David Park's Shadowhawk completed the formation, lighter but fast enough to flank and scout. "Lance Charlie, this is Reed." The captain's voice filled their neurohelmets. "You're dropping hot into an active combat zone. Republic forces are designated friendly, everything else is hostile. Rules of engagement: weapons free on droid targets, defensive posture toward organic combatants unless fired upon. Show them what mech warriors can do, but don't give away all our tactical capabilities. We still don't know where this galaxy's allegiances will ultimately fall." "Understood, Captain," Chen acknowledged. "Lance Charlie is ready for deployment." The dropship broke orbit with fusion drives burning at maximum thrust, entering Ryloth's atmosphere in a controlled descent that would have torn apart most Republic vessels. But Union-class dropships were built to land in combat zones under fire. And the Emerald Sword had done this hundreds of times across dozens of worlds. The hull glowed red from atmospheric friction as they plummeted toward the coordinates Anakin had provided. On Ryloth's surface, Anakin watched the descending ship with his macro binoculars, Obi-Wan beside him. "That's not a normal landing pattern," Obi-Wan observed. "No, it's a combat drop," Anakin replied, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. "They're coming in fast and hot, ready to deploy immediately upon landing. Master, we're about to witness something new." The Emerald Sword touched down 2 kilometers behind Republic lines with thrusters blazing, crushing a Separatist forward observation post in the process. Before the dust had even settled, the dropship's bay doors blew open and 4 towering war machines strode out into Ryloth's sun. Chen's Warhammer led the formation, its humanoid shape moving with fluid grace that seemed impossible for something so massive. The Shadowhawk spread right for reconnaissance, while Kowalski's Awesome took the left flank. Rivera's Atlas brought up the rear, its skull-like cockpit swiveling as the massive autocannon tracked for targets. "Contact!" Park called over the Lance frequency. "I've got battle droids, hundreds of them, advancing on clone positions at grid reference Delta 4. They're infantry models, standard loadout." Acknowledged, Chen replied, her targeting computer painting the enemy force on her HUD. Lance Charlie, engage at will. Let's show these droids what real firepower looks like. The Warhammer's paired PPCs fired simultaneously, azure bolts of artificial lightning lancing across the battlefield. Each particle projection cannon unleashed a stream of charged particles accelerated to relativistic speeds, weapons designed to vaporize battlemech armor at range. Against battle droids, the effect was devastating. The twin PPC streams carved through the droid formation like a fusion torch through paper, each direct hit vaporizing 3 or 4 droids in a chain reaction of exploding power cells and shattered metal. Splash 15 targets, Chen reported calmly, adjusting her aim as her medium lasers added ruby beams to the carnage. The heat in her cockpit spiked as the weapons discharged, her cooling vest working overtime to keep her functional. Gunner, your turn. Kowalski's awesome lived up to its name. 3 PPCs fired in sequence, each one a thunderclap of released energy. The sustained barrage walked through the droid lines like an angry god, each hit obliterating multiple targets. Battle droids designed to overwhelm through numbers suddenly found themselves facing weapons that treated numerical superiority as target-rich environments. I count 50 destroyed, more falling back, Kowalski reported, his voice carrying grim satisfaction. They're not used to this kind of firepower, repositioning for second salvo. But the Separatists weren't retreating. They were adapting. Spider droids emerged from behind cover, their heavy blasters targeting the battle mechs. Blaster fire splashed against the Warhammer's armor, scoring the surface but failing to penetrate. Chen barely noticed the impacts. Taking fire from spider droids, armor holding, she reported. Rivera, you're up. The Atlas AS-7D stomped forward, and for the first time, the Republic forces and remaining droids alike felt the ground shake with each footfall. James Rivera aligned his crosshairs on the nearest spider droid and triggered his Defiance Killer AC-20 autocannon. The sound was unlike anything heard on a Star Wars battlefield. A thunderous boom that echoed across the valley as a 120mm depleted uranium shell launched at supersonic speeds. The round hit the spider droid center mass and simply erased it, the kinetic impact transferring enough energy to shred the droid into scrap metal and send pieces spinning 50 meters in every direction. Target destroyed, Rivera said with quiet satisfaction, loading another shell. Next. Boom. Another spider droid vanished in a spray of shrapnel. Boom. A squad of super battle droids simply ceased to exist as the autocannon round passed through them. The Atlas's paired medium lasers added to the destruction, melting armor and cooking off ammunition in secondary explosions. From the Republic positions, Anakin Skywalker watched in awe as 4 machines systematically dismantled a force that had been pushing his clones to the breaking point. Obi-Wan, are you seeing this? I am, Obi-Wan replied, his usual composure shaken. Anakin, those weapons. The power output is staggering. Each of those energy blasts carries more destructive force than anything short of a turbo laser battery. And that projectile cannon. He shook his head. The kinetic energy transfer is simply brutal. Commander Stone lowered his binoculars, his expression hidden behind his helmet, but his voice carrying clear respect. Sir, those aren't just war machines. Those are force multipliers. 4 of them are doing what would normally take an entire battalion. On the battlefield, Chen coordinated her lance with the efficiency of years of combat experience. Park, I need flanking recon. Identify any heavy armor or artillery positions. Kowalski, suppress that ridge line. I'm seeing droid reinforcements. Rivera, You're our anvil. Anything that gets past the rest of us hits your firing line. Copy that, boss, Park acknowledged, his Shadowhawk sprinting forward with shocking speed for a 55-ton machine. The jump jets fired, lifting the battle mech 30 meters into the air in a ballistic arc that gave him perfect observation of the battlefield. I've got eyes on 3 AATs and a squadron of droid fighters forming up for a strafing run. Designating targets now. Chen's tactical display updated with Park's targeting data. Kowalski, take the AAT tanks. Rivera, you've got anti-air duty if those fighters commit. I'm pushing forward to support the clone positions. Move out. The Warhammer advanced at 64 kilometers per hour. Its gyros compensating for terrain and keeping weapons steady even at combat speed. Chen's targeting computer tracked 36 individual threats, prioritizing based on danger level and engagement range. Another PPC blast carved through an advancing droid squad, the superheated air leaving a glowing trail. The AAT tanks opened fire, their heavy laser cannons targeting Kowalski's awesome. The energy weapons scored hits across the 80-ton mech's torso, stripping away armor, but failing to breach the thick plating. Kowalski's response was immediate and overwhelming. 3 PPCs fired at staggered intervals, each one finding its mark. The first AAT's shield generators overloaded instantly. The second strike melted through the armor. The third vaporized the crew compartment and detonated the vehicle's power core. AAT down, Kowalski reported. Engaging second target. Heat levels manageable. Rivera's Atlas proved that battle mechs were equally capable at anti-air warfare. As the droid fighters dove toward the Republic positions, his quad medium lasers tracked them with computer-assisted precision. 4 ruby beams lanced upward, and 2 fighters simply disintegrated mid-flight, their debris raining down across the battlefield. The surviving fighters broke off their attack run, clearly not programmed to deal with ground-based weapons this deadly. Splashed 2 fighters, Rivera confirmed. Remaining hostiles are bugging out. I think we convinced them. From the Separatist Command Center, General Grievous watched the tactical displays with growing fury. In less than 10 minutes, 4 unknown war machines had destroyed over 200 battle droids, 3 tanks, and 2 fighters. His numerical advantage was evaporating under sustained precision fire. What are those things? His tactical officer demanded. Something we weren't prepared for, Grievous snarled. Pull back the assault. Regroup at the secondary line. I want every heavy unit we have brought forward. If those machines want a real fight, we'll give them one. His yellow eyes gleamed with predatory interest. And capture one if possible. Count Dooku wants to study them. I want to destroy them. On the Republic side, Anakin made a decision. All forces advance with the battle mechs. They've broken the Separatist line. We need to exploit it before they regroup. Commander Stone, coordinate with Captain Reed's people. I'm joining the push. General, with respect, those machines could accidentally step on you, Stone warned. Anakin grinned. Then I'll just have to be fast. Come on. Chen received the updated tactical data showing Republic forces advancing to support. Captain, Republic forces are moving up to consolidate gains. Recommend we hold this position and provide overwatch while they advance. Negative, Lieutenant. Reed's voice crackled back. I'm seeing Separatist armor formations repositioning. Heavy units, spider droids, and what our database identifies as super-heavy hailfire missile platforms. They're preparing a counterattack. Can your lance handle it? Chen glanced at her heat gauge, running warm but manageable, and her ammunition counters. The Atlas still had 15 AC-20 rounds, and their energy weapons were unlimited as long as heat sinks kept functioning. Affirmative, Captain. Lance Charlie can hold this line. Send us coordinates, and we'll turn it into a killing field. That's what I like to hear, Reed replied with grim satisfaction. Transmitting fire support coordinates now. Make them regret attacking our allies, Lieutenant. As the sun set over Ryloth, 4 battle mechs stood as an unbreakable wall between the Republic forces and the Separatist counterattack. The Clone Wars had seen many battles, but tonight, the galaxy would learn a new lesson. When mech warriors chose to fight, they didn't just participate in battles. They dominated them. The aftermath of Ryloth left the Republic forces in a state of shocked admiration, and the Jedi Council deeply troubled. In the temporary command center established in Ryloth's capital, Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Captain Marcus Reed stood around a holographic tactical display, reviewing the battle statistics. The numbers told a story that challenged everything the Jedi thought they understood about warfare. 4 battle mechs, Obi-Wan said quietly, studying the casualty reports. 4 machines and their pilots held off a force of over 800 battle droids, 12 armored vehicles, and supporting air units. Your losses were 0 casualties, minor armor damage to 2 units. The Separatists lost nearly their entire assault force. That's what battle mechs are designed for, General Kenobi, Marcus replied, keeping his tone professional despite the fatigue weighing on him. Decisive firepower, superior armor, and mech warriors trained from youth to dominate battlefields. In our universe, a single lance can determine the outcome of planetary campaigns. What you saw today was a standard engagement for us. Anakin leaned forward, his eyes intense. Standard. Captain, your Lieutenant Chen's PPCs were vaporizing targets at ranges where our troops can barely achieve accuracy with blasters. That Atlas autocannon, I saw it punch through a disabled AAT's armor like it was transparent steel. And the way your pilots coordinated, the tactical precision. He shook his head in wonder. That wasn't just training. That was warrior culture honed over generations. 300 years of constant warfare, Marcus confirmed. The succession wars taught us that battles aren't won by the biggest army. They're won by the best warriors piloting the most effective machines. Every mech warrior in my lance has logged thousands of combat hours. This wasn't their first desperate stand, and it won't be their last. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Lieutenant Chen, still wearing her cooling vest and looking physically drained from hours in the cockpit. She saluted Reed crisply before acknowledging the Jedi with a nod. Warhammer is back in its bay, Captain. Armor breaches on the right torso from concentrated spider droid fire, but nothing structural. Give me 6 hours and a repair crew. We'll have her combat ready again. Kowalski's reporting similar status. Rivera barely got scratched. That Atlas armor is something else. Park's Shadowhawk took some damage to the left leg actuator, but he limped home. Good work, Lieutenant, Marcus replied. Get some rest. You've earned it. Chen hesitated, then addressed the Jedi directly. Generals, your clone troopers fought well down there. Disciplined fire, good tactical awareness, didn't break under pressure. In our universe, they'd be considered elite infantry. You should be proud of them. Coming from someone who just demonstrated the pinnacle of mechanized warfare, that means something. Obi-Wan replied with genuine warmth. Thank you, Lieutenant Chen. After Chen departed, the atmosphere shifted. Obi-Wan's expression grew more serious. Captain Reed, the Jedi Council has asked me to discuss something delicate. Your people's intervention today saved countless clone lives and secured a critical victory. The Republic is grateful. But your demonstration also revealed capabilities that have implications. You're worried about what we represent, Marcus stated flatly. Military power not aligned with either side of your war, invisible to your force, and capable of decisive battlefield impact. I'd be worried too, if I were in your position. Anakin bristled slightly at the bluntness, but Obi-Wan raised a hand. Direct assessment, and accurate. Captain, the Jedi serve the Republic, but we're also keepers of peace. War machines of the power you've demonstrated, in the wrong hands, could devastate entire systems. Count Dooku and the Separatist Council will have analyzed today's battle by now. They'll want your technology even more desperately. Which brings us to a difficult question. What are your intentions? Marcus walked to the viewport, staring out at Ryloth's recovering cityscape where clone engineers and local Twi'leks worked together to repair damage. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of command decisions made under fire across a dozen worlds. In my universe, mech warriors follow codes. Honor, courage, loyalty to our houses or mercenary companies. We fight for legitimate contracts. We respect the laws of warfare, and we don't abandon our principles for profit. Today, I saw Republic forces, your clones and your Jedi, fighting to protect this planet's civilian population against droid armies that don't care about collateral damage. That's a righteous cause by any standard I know. He turned back to face them. But I also saw something else. Your Jedi serve as generals in a war that's clearly wearing on you philosophically. Your clone army is problematic. They're bred for war, conditioned to obey, and treated as expendable assets by much of your Republic. Count Dooku wasn't entirely wrong when he called them slaves. And this democracy you're defending? Marcus gestured to the holodisplay showing Republic Senate proceedings. It's paralyzed by corporate interests and political maneuvering that would make the Free Worlds League look functional. You're saying you don't trust either side, Anakin said, his tone somewhere between accusation and respect. I'm saying I don't understand either side well enough to commit my people and our battle mechs to your war, Marcus corrected. Today, we fought because Republic forces showed us honor, and because droid armies were killing people. That's simple math. But long-term alliance? That requires understanding motivations, end goals, and whether the side we support aligns with mech warrior codes. Obi-Wan stroked his beard thoughtfully. A fair assessment, and remarkably honest, given that many would simply exploit the situation for personal gain. Captain, what would it take for you to trust us? Transparency, Marcus replied immediately. About this war's origins, about what happens when it ends, about the Jedi's true role in Republic governance, and answers to some questions that have been bothering me since we arrived. Like why your Jedi Council includes a Keldor named Plo Koon, who can't sense us through the Force, but still treats us with more respect than some beings who can. Or why General Skywalker here lights up on our thermal sensors like he's running a personal fusion reactor when he uses those Force powers. Or, and this is the big one, why I'm getting intelligence reports that suggest this war is being manipulated by someone high up in your Republic who's also controlling the Separatists. The silence that followed was deafening. Anakin and Obi-Wan exchanged glances, and Marcus saw the moment of internal debate written clearly on their faces. Finally, Obi-Wan spoke carefully. You've observed more than we anticipated in just a few days. Your intelligence-gathering capabilities are impressive. Captain, some of what you're asking touches on active Jedi Council investigations. Information we can't share freely without compromising operational security. And some of it, Anakin added, his voice tight, touches on doubts that the Jedi don't like to admit publicly. Yes, this war troubles us. Yes, serving as generals conflicts with our peacekeeping principles. And yes, there are inconsistencies in how this conflict began that don't add up. Marcus nodded slowly. Then here's what I propose. The Emerald Sword and Lance Charlie remain in-system as independent contractors. We'll provide military consultation, limited combat support in defensive operations, and technical advice on tactical matters. In exchange, the Republic provides raw materials, engineering support to help repair our KF drive, and complete transparency about the nature of this war. No political strings, no demands to hand over our technology, no attempts to recruit or manipulate. We work together as allies of circumstance until we can find a way home. The Council would want guarantees that you won't share Republic military intelligence with the Separatists, Obi-Wan pointed out. We don't work for both sides of the same conflict, Marcus replied firmly. That's not honor, that's betrayal. If we're with you, we're with you. But we reserve the right to withdraw if we discover the Republic is as corrupt as Dooku claims, or if your war goals become indefensible. Anakin grinned suddenly. You know, I like you, Captain Reed. You're practical, you're honest, and you don't hide behind political double talk. Master Yoda's going to have interesting thoughts about you. The Grand Master of your order? Marcus asked. I've heard the name. 800 years old, deeply wise, speaks in riddles that somehow cut straight to truth. I'd be honored to meet him. Be careful what you wish for, Obi-Wan said with a slight smile. Master Yoda has a way of seeing through people that can be unsettling. But I think he'll appreciate your directness. Very well, Captain. I'll present your proposal to the Council. In the meantime, your people are welcome to Republic facilities here on Ryloth. And if you're interested, I'd like to understand more about this mech warrior culture. The way your pilots fight together, the trust and coordination. It reminds me of how Jedi work in teams, but evolved along different philosophical lines. Different but parallel, Marcus agreed. Jedi bond through the Force. Mech warriors bond through shared combat, through the connection between pilot and machine, and through codes that transcend individual lives. We believe that a warrior's honor is measured by how they fight, how they treat worthy opponents, and how they protect those who can't protect themselves. Your Jedi code and our mech warrior oaths might use different words, but they're aiming at similar truths. The conversation continued into the evening. 3 warriors from different cultures finding common ground through mutual respect and honest dialogue. Outside, clone troopers and Emerald Sword crew members worked together to establish defensive positions. While in the drop ship's mech bay, Lieutenant Chen and her fellow mech warriors performed post-battle maintenance on their machines. You think Reed's plan will work? Kowalski asked, running diagnostics on his Awesome's heat sinks. Staying independent while working with the Republic? It's better than the alternatives, Chen replied, carefully inspecting armor breaches on her warhammer. The Republic has ideals worth defending, even if their execution is flawed. And those Jedi, they're warriors trying to be peacekeepers. I respect that, even if it's doomed to fail eventually. What about the Force? David Park called from his Shadowhawk. I've been reading the intelligence reports. This energy field that supposedly connects all living things, grants psychic powers, and can be used for good or evil. It sounds like mystical nonsense. It sounds like every religion ever created to explain the unexplainable. Rivera rumbled from beneath his atlas, where he was replacing actuator components. But I saw Skywalker move things with his mind, Park. I saw him deflect blaster bolts with a laser sword while moving faster than unaugmented humans should be able to. Whatever the Force is, it's real, and it makes those Jedi extremely dangerous in close combat. Good thing we fight at range, Kowalski said with dark humor. Let's see a Jedi deflect a PPC blast or an AC-20 round. Spoiler, they can't. Chen frowned at that. Don't underestimate them, Gunner. I saw Skywalker during the battle. He's young, reckless, but there's something about him. A raw power that feels like staring at a fusion reactor about to overload. If we ever have to fight Jedi, it won't be easy. Then let's hope we never do, Rivera replied. I didn't sign up to fight space wizards. I signed up to pilot battle mechs and return home with honor intact. Speaking of which, Captain Reed better figure out how to fix that KF drive soon. This galaxy's interesting, but it's not ours. Unknown to the mech warriors, their conversation was being remotely observed by someone with far more sinister intentions. In his private chambers on Coruscant, Darth Sidious studied holographic recordings of the Ryloth battle with calculating eyes. The battle mechs represented both a threat and an opportunity. Warriors outside the Force's influence, technology that could shift the careful balance he'd established, and most importantly, potential weapons that neither Jedi nor his apprentice Dooku could easily predict or control. Interesting, he murmured to himself. Very interesting indeed. These mech warriors could serve my purposes, if properly motivated. Or they could be eliminated if they prove too unpredictable. Either way, they've become pieces on my game board. The question is, do they realize they're being played? The Clone Wars had become infinitely more complex with the arrival of the Emerald Sword. And in wars, complexity often led to opportunities for those willing to exploit chaos. The attack came 3 nights after Ryloth, when the Emerald Sword was grounded for repairs and most of the crew was resting after 72 hours of continuous operations. It came with the precision of professional hunters who'd studied their prey carefully, and it came from an angle Marcus Reed hadn't fully anticipated. The criminal underworld working in concert with separatist special operations teams. The first indication of trouble was when perimeter alarms screamed across the dropship's security network at Oro 247 local time. Marcus was on the bridge within seconds, still pulling on his jacket as damage reports flooded in. Breaching charges on the port side cargo bay, his security chief reported tensely. Multiple entry points, coordinated assault. They're using signal jammers. I can't get a clear count on hostile forces, but thermal imaging suggests at least 50 combatants, probably more. Captain, they're not going for the bridge or engineering. They're heading straight for the mech bay. Sound general quarters, Marcus ordered immediately. All hands to combat stations. Get Lieutenant Chen and her lance to their mechs now. And someone raise General Skywalker. We need Republic support. But the attackers had planned for that. Across Ryloth's capital, carefully positioned jammers were creating a communications dead zone around the Emerald Sword, isolating it from Republic forces positioned kilometers away. By the time the clones realized something was wrong, the battle would be over, one way or another. In the mech bay, Lieutenant Sarah Chen was already moving. She'd been running post-maintenance checks on her Warhammer when the alarm sounded, and her combat instincts kicked in instantly. All pilots, this is Chen. We're under attack. Get to your mechs and prep for hostile boarding action. Rivera, your Atlas is closest to the bay entrance. You're our first line of defense. Park, Kowalski, get your reactors hot and be ready to provide supporting fire. Move. The attackers breached the mech bay 30 seconds later, and what poured through the shattered bulkhead was a nightmare coalition. Trandoshan mercenaries in heavy armor, armed with thermal detonators and slug throwers, weapons specifically chosen to be effective against battle mech armor at close range. Commando droids moving with lethal speed, their programming optimized for special operations. And leading them, a figure that made Chen's blood run cold, a being wearing unfamiliar armor who moved with inhuman grace, 4 arms, each holding a weapon, and glowing yellow eyes that tracked her position with predatory precision. "Bounty hunter," she breathed, recognizing a professional killer when she saw one. "Multiple hostiles in the mech bay. We're engaging." Chen sprinted for her Warhammer's ladder, but the commando droids were already firing. Blaster bolts seared the air around her, one grazing her shoulder and spinning her halfway around. She rolled behind a maintenance crate, her sidearm, a Federated Commonwealth-issue laser pistol, coming up smoothly. 2 shots, 2 destroyed droids, their photoreceptors melting under focused energy. But there were too many, and they were spreading out, using professional small unit tactics to flank and suppress. Chen's crew members opened fire from defensive positions, their slug throwers and energy weapons creating a deadly crossfire. But the attackers kept coming. Then James Rivera's Atlas AS-7D came online. The 100-ton assault mech startup sequence normally took 90 seconds. Rivera completed it in 45, overriding safety protocols and forcing the fusion reactor to operational status before the targeting computers had fully calibrated. His neurohelmet connection snapped into place, and suddenly he wasn't looking through his eyes anymore. He was looking through the Atlas's sensors, his body extending into 70 feet of armored death. "Hostile forces in the mech bay." Rivera's voice thundered through the Atlas's external speakers at volume levels designed to be heard across battlefields. "You have 5 seconds to surrender or be destroyed." The 4-armed hunter didn't surrender. Instead, he raised what looked like a modified rocket launcher and fired directly at the Atlas's cockpit. The shaped charge detonated against the reinforced canopy, cracking but not breaching the armored glass. Rivera's response was immediate and devastating. The Atlas's left arm, equipped with a medium laser, tracked the hunter and fired. The ruby beam lanced across the mech bay at reduced power, deliberately aiming for the floor in front of the bounty hunter rather than a direct kill shot. The ferrocrete floor exploded in a spray of molten stone and superheated debris, the shockwave hurling the hunter backwards and scattering his squad. "Second warning," Rivera said coldly. "I've got AC-20 rounds loaded. Next shot won't miss, and there won't be enough left of you to identify through dental records. Withdraw, now." But the Trandoshans weren't intimidated. They were enraged. Their culture valued hunting dangerous prey, and a battle mech represented the ultimate trophy. They charged forward with thermal detonators armed, intent on bringing down the giant war machine through sheer suicidal bravery. Chen used the distraction to reach her Warhammer's cockpit, scaling the ladder with practiced speed despite her wounded shoulder. Her neurohelmet settled into place, and the familiar sensation of connection flooded through her. Reactor online, weapons online, targeting, still calibrating. But she didn't need computers to aim at point-blank range. Her Warhammer's right arm came up, the medium laser tracking a cluster of commandos advancing on Rivera's position. She fired, and 3 droids simply ceased to exist as the laser flash-boiled their internal components. Her left arm swung to cover another approach vector, PPCs charging but not firing. In the confined space of the mech bay, a full PPC blast would punch through bulkheads and potentially breach the dropship's hull. "Chen, careful with those PPCs." Marcus's voice crackled through her neurohelmet. "You shoot through a wall, you might hit something critical." "Understood, Captain," Chen replied, switching her PPCs to standby and relying on medium lasers for close combat. "But sir," We've got enemy forces with heavy anti-armor weapons. They're specifically equipped to fight battle mechs. This wasn't a random attack. Someone gave them our specifications. On the bridge, Marcus swore creatively. The Separatists had clearly studied the Ryloth battle footage, identified the battle mech's vulnerabilities, and assembled a strike team specifically designed to exploit them. Commando droids for speed and precision, Trandoshans for raw aggression and heavy weapons. And that bounty hunter, whoever he was, clearly had experience hunting dangerous targets. Security teams, converge on the mech bay, Marcus ordered. But stay in cover and provide suppressing fire only. Don't get in the mech warriors' line of fire. Engineering, seal all bulkheads between the bay and critical systems. If they can't have our mechs, they might try to sabotage the ship. David Park's Shadowhawk came online next, its lighter frame powering up faster than the heavier machines. I'm mobile, he reported. Chen, Rivera, I'll handle the left flank. You two hold center and right. The Shadowhawk's jump jets fired in the confined space. Not enough to achieve flight, but sufficient to lift the 55-ton mech 2 meters off the deck and pivot 90 degrees in midair. Park's targeting computer painted 12 hostiles clustered near a maintenance station, and his AC-5 autocannon spoke once. The 5-round burst of 120mm shells, smaller than Rivera's massive AC-20 but fired at much higher velocity, shredded the maintenance station and everyone behind it. The hypersonic rounds punched through the cover like it wasn't there. The kin continued 10.29 etic transfer, turning solid metal into lethal shrapnel that scythed through the enemy squad. Left flank clear, Park reported calmly. Repositioning to contact right. More hostiles breaching through the starboard bay doors. The second wave of attackers poured in with military precision, and Marcus realized with sinking certainty that this was a full-scale assault, not a smash-and-grab raid. Someone wanted his battle mechs badly enough to commit significant resources and accept massive casualties. Kowalski's Awesome finally achieved combat-ready status, its 3 PPCs charging with ominous electrical crackling. Gunner online, he announced grimly. Captain, recommend I target the breach points. If I can seal the entries with heat, we can limit their reinforcements. Do it, Marcus authorized. Just don't bring down the base ceiling. Kowalski's targeting system locked onto the starboard breach, a 2-meter hole blown through the dropship's armored hull. He fired a single PPC at reduced power, the azure bolt of artificial lightning striking the edges of the breach. Superheated metal flowed like water, partially sealing the gap and filling the opening with molten debris that no living being could cross. The screams of attackers caught in the blast were mercifully brief. Breach sealed, Kowalski reported without emotion, targeting secondary entry point. But the bounty hunter had regrouped, and he'd clearly called in backup. Through the still open portside breach, a heavy weapon emplacement rolled into position. A modified E-Web heavy repeating blaster, its power pack upgraded to military specifications. The weapon opened fire, concentrated blaster bolts hammering into Chen's warhammer with sustained fury. Armor ablated under the sustained fire, the warhammer's right torso taking heavy damage as the high-energy bolts found weak points and drove deep. Warning lights flashed across Chen's HUD, damage reports scrolling faster than she could read them. She pivoted, bringing her own weapons to bear. But the E-Web's crew were professionals. They'd positioned behind hardened cover with clear lines of fire. I'm taking heavy fire, Chen reported, her voice tight. Armor breach in right torso, heat sinks damaged. I need... Rivera's Atlas stepped in front of her, using its massive bulk as a shield. The blaster fire shifted to the assault mech, bolts sparking off armor that was twice as thick as the warhammers. Rivera's skull-like cockpit rotated, targeting systems locking onto the E-web position with cold precision. "You want to shoot something?" Rivera's voice carried deadly promise. "Shoot this." The Defiance Killer AC-20 autocannon fired at full power. The 120mm depleted uranium shell crossed the distance in microseconds, struck the E-web emplacement, and detonated on impact, with kinetic force equivalent to a small vehicle collision. The heavy weapon, its crew, and a 5-meter section of cover simply disintegrated, vaporized metal and biological matter mixing in a cloud of superheated vapor. "Threat neutralized," Rivera reported. "Chen, fall back and assess damage. I'll hold this position." The battle raged for another 10 minutes, mech warriors and crew fighting with desperate intensity against attackers who refused to break. But the tide had turned. 4 fully operational battle mechs in a defensive position were effectively unstoppable at close range. And the assault force, designed for speed and precision, couldn't sustain casualties against weapons that killed by the squad. The bounty hunter was the last to withdraw, firing a final rocket salvo that achieved nothing except scarring Rivera's Atlas before vanishing through the port breach. Within seconds, the remaining attackers followed, leaving behind 24 dead, several destroyed droids, and a mech bay that looked like a war zone. Marcus reached the bay 3 minutes after the last hostile withdrew, surveying the damage with grim eyes. Scorch marks, bullet impacts, pools of coolant and hydraulic fluid, structural damage that would take weeks to properly repair. But the battle mechs stood intact, and his crew had survived. "Status report," he ordered. Chen climbed down from her warhammer, favoring her wounded shoulder. Warhammer took moderate damage, right torso armor compromised, heat sinks offline. Combat effective at reduced capacity. Gunner, Park, Rivera. "Awesome undamaged," Kowalski reported. "Some armor scoring, nothing serious." "Shadowhawk operational," Park confirmed. "Atlas is fine," Rivera rumbled. "A few more dents in the armor, but this girl's built to take punishment." Marcus nodded slowly, then activated his comm. "Get me General Skywalker. The communications jamming should be down now. And someone find out who just tried to steal my battle mechs. Because when I identify them, we're having a very pointed conversation about what happens when you attack a dropship full of mech warriors." The answer would come within hours, delivered by Republic intelligence in the form of captured security footage. The bounty hunter was identified as a rising mercenary named Cad Bane. The operation had been financed by separatist interests and coordinated by agents of the Techno Union. Count Dooku's diplomatic overtures had been genuine, but so had his backup plan to simply take what he wanted by force. The galaxy far, far away was learning an important lesson. Mech warriors protected their own, and threats to a dropship were answered with overwhelming violence. The Emerald Sword had been bloodied, but it remained unbowed. And somewhere in the shadows, Count Dooku was reconsidering his approach to acquiring battlemech technology. Direct assault had failed. Perhaps more subtle methods were required. The war for the Emerald Sword's technology had truly begun. The Republic's response to the assault on the Emerald Sword was swift and politically complex. Within 12 hours, Anakin Skywalker arrived with 2 battalions of clone troopers and established a security perimeter around the grounded dropship. Within 24 hours, Jedi Master Mace Windu himself arrived on Ryloth, his presence signaling the Council's serious concern about the situation. Marcus Reed met the legendary Jedi Master in the Emerald Sword's damaged mech bay, where repair crews worked around the clock to restore the Warhammer's armor integrity. Mace Windu moved with the controlled grace of a master warrior. his dark eyes taking in every detail of the battle mechs with professional assessment. "Captain Reed," Windu greeted him formally. "The Council asked me to convey our apologies. The attack on your vessel occurred under Republic protection. That failure is unacceptable." "With respect, Master Windu, your forces were jammed and positioned kilometers away," Marcus replied evenly. "The attackers were professionals who planned specifically to isolate us. That's not the Republic's failure. That's the Separatists demonstrating they want our technology badly enough to commit significant resources." Windu's expression remained impassive, but something flickered in his eyes. Respect, perhaps. A generous interpretation. Nevertheless, the Council has authorized increased security measures and priority resource allocation to help repair your vessel. We've also identified the parties responsible for the attack. Cad Bane, a bounty hunter with no loyalty beyond credits. The Techno-Union provided financing. And Count Dooku. He paused meaningfully. Count Dooku personally approved the operation. So his diplomatic overture was a distraction while he planned theft, Marcus said flatly. In my universe, we call that House Leo tactics. Smile to your face, knife in your back. An apt comparison, Windu agreed. Captain, the Republic is prepared to offer a formal military alliance. Full access to our shipyards, engineering cores, raw materials, everything you need to repair your KF drive. In exchange, we ask that you commit your lance to defensive operations protecting Republic assets and provide technical consultation on battle mech combat doctrine. Marcus studied the Jedi Master carefully. Unlike the younger Skywalker, Windu was harder to read, a professional warrior who'd learned to mask his thoughts through decades of combat and politics. That's a more formal arrangement than we've had. What changed? You shed blood defending Republic forces on Ryloth, Windu replied simply. You stood your ground when attacked by Separatist agents. And frankly, Captain, the Council has concluded that beings who are invisible to the Force represent either valuable allies or dangerous enemies. We'd prefer allies. And if we refuse? Then you remain independent, and the Republic respects that, Windu said, surprising Marcus with the directness. But the Separatists have shown they'll continue hunting you. Dooku wants your technology, and he won't stop with one failed raid. Eventually, he'll commit military forces, fleet assets, overwhelming numbers, possibly dark Jedi assassins. Your dropship is formidable, Captain. But can it stand against a dedicated Separatist fleet? It was a fair question, and Marcus knew the answer. The Emerald Sword could fight, could inflict tremendous casualties, but ultimately a single Union-class dropship couldn't hold off capital ships indefinitely. They needed allies, resources, and time to repair the KF drive and find a way home. I'll need to consult with my crew and my mech warriors, Marcus said finally. But Master Windu, if we commit to this alliance, I need your word on something. The Republic doesn't try to reverse engineer our technology without permission. We share tactical doctrine, combat strategies, even limited technical specifications. But the core systems, fusion reactor designs, battle mech engineering, KF drive principles, those remain ours until we decide otherwise. Can you agree to that? Windu considered for a long moment. The Council will accept those terms with one condition. If you discover a way to replicate your dimensional crossing, you share that knowledge. The Republic has strategic interest in understanding how you arrived here. Because you're worried about what else might come through, Marcus realized. Other universes, other realities, potentially hostile forces with capabilities you can't predict. Precisely, Windu confirmed. Your arrival was peaceful, if accidental. The next breach might not be. Marcus extended his hand. Deal. The Emerald Sword formally allies with the Galactic Republic for the duration of our stay in this galaxy. We'll fight your enemies, defend your people, and uphold mech warrior honor. But the day we find a way home, we're taking it. Alliance or no alliance. Windu clasped his hand firmly. The Republic asks for nothing more. Welcome to the Clone Wars, Captain Reed. May the Force be with you. And may Blake's blessings guide your warriors, Marcus replied, invoking the founder of the original Mech Warrior Code. Even if they can't hear him across universes. The formal alliance changed everything. Within days, Republic engineering teams arrived with specialized equipment and raw materials. The Emerald Sword's damaged hull sections were reinforced with Durasteel plating, not as effective as Battletech-grade armor, but better than nothing. Chen's Warhammer received emergency repairs, restoring its heat sinks and replacing the compromised torso armor. But more importantly, the alliance meant intelligence sharing. And what Marcus learned about the Clone Wars in those briefings troubled him deeply. The war started 3 years ago, Commander Stone explained, gesturing to tactical displays showing the Republic's strategic situation. A separatist crisis on Geonosis, thousands of systems seceding, the discovery of the clone army that saved the Republic from immediate defeat. But here's what doesn't add up, Captain. That clone army was commissioned 10 years before the war started, by a Jedi Master who died shortly after placing the order. The Separatists were organized and armed years in advance, and the whole conflict kicked off at exactly the moment the Republic discovered it had a military to fight with. Someone set this up, Marcus said quietly. Both sides, the timing, everything. This isn't a civil war, it's orchestrated conflict. That's the Jedi Council's suspicion, Anakin added, his expression grim. But we can't prove who's pulling the strings. Every lead dead ends. Every investigation runs into political barriers. And meanwhile, billions die while we fight a war that someone designed. Marcus had seen this before. The succession wars had started with legitimate grievances and territorial disputes. But they'd been sustained for centuries by military-industrial complexes that profited from endless conflict. Every house had its hardliners who preferred war to peace. Its corporations that built weapons and needed markets. Its intelligence services that manipulated events to maintain advantage. In my universe, we call this a forever war, Marcus said quietly. Conflict sustained not because either side can win, but because powerful interests benefit from the fighting continuing. If that's what's happening here, then ending this war means identifying who benefits most from its continuation. The Jedi have been trying, Obi-Wan replied, his voice carrying frustration. But we're warriors now, not investigators. We command armies, fight battles, make tactical decisions. We've lost our way, Captain. The Jedi were supposed to be peacekeepers, and now we're generals in a war we don't understand. The conversation was interrupted by urgent alarms. Lieutenant Chen burst into the command center, her expression urgent. Captain, long-range sensors are picking up a separatist fleet entering the system. Multiple Providence-class destroyers, Munificent-class frigates, and... She paused, checking her datapad. Sir, that's General Grievous's flagship, the Invisible Hand. They're moving directly toward Ryloth. Marcus felt cold certainty settle over him. This isn't a raid. This is a full assault. They're coming for us with everything they have. Mace Windu's lightsaber was already in his hand, though not ignited. Then we defend this position with everything we have. Captain Reed, how combat-ready is your lance? Chen's Warhammer is at 80%. The rest are fully operational, Marcus replied, his mind already running tactical calculations. But Master Windu, 4 battle mechs can't hold off a fleet. We need a strategy that plays to our strengths. Anakin grinned suddenly, his tactical mind engaging with the problem. Then let's give them what they want. Let them come for the drop ship. Let them commit ground forces, thinking they can overwhelm you with numbers like they did in the raid. And when they're fully engaged, when their forces are concentrated on taking the Emerald Sword, his eyes gleamed. That's when we hit them with everything the Republic can throw at them. A trap, Marcus realized, using my ship as bait. Using your ship as an anvil, Anakin corrected. Your battle mechs hold the center, drawing the Separatist assault. Republic forces hit their flanks. Our fleet engages their capital ships. We turn their greed for your technology into their downfall. It was risky, aggressive, and exactly the kind of bold strategy that won battles or lost them catastrophically. Marcus looked at his mech warriors, Chen, Kowalski, Park, Rivera, and saw the same grim determination he felt. All right, Marcus decided. We'll be your anvil. But I want air support, artillery coordination, and a clear extraction plan if this goes sideways. And General Skywalker? When this is over, when we've beaten Grievous back, you and I are having a long conversation about ending this war instead of just fighting it. Deal, Anakin agreed. Now let's show the Separatists what happens when they pick a fight with mech warriors and Jedi together. As the Separatist fleet entered orbit and began deploying ground forces, the Emerald Sword's crew prepared for the battle of their lives. In the mech bay, 4 battle mechs stood ready, their fusion reactors humming with power. Around the drop ship, Republic clone troopers dug into defensive positions, artillery pieces were positioned for maximum effect, and Jedi prepared to lead the counterattack. The siege of the drop ship was about to begin, and the galaxy would witness something unprecedented. The full fury of battle mech warfare unleashed in coordination with the Republic's finest warriors. General Grievous was about to learn why you didn't corner desperate mech warriors. The Separatist assault began at dawn, with the kind of overwhelming force that had crushed Republic positions across 100 worlds. From orbit, General Grievous watched through his ship's view screens as landing craft descended in waves, deploying thousands of battle droids, super battle droids, droidicas, spider droids, and heavy armor. 3 full droid armies, committed to a single objective: capture or destroy the Emerald Sword and its precious cargo of battle mech technology. All units, advance, Grievous commanded, his mechanical voice devoid of emotion. Overwhelm their defenses through sheer numbers. I want those war machines intact, but if capture proves impossible, destroy them. The Techno-Union will be satisfied either way. On the ground, Lieutenant Sarah Chen sat in her Warhammer's cockpit, watching the approaching force through her sensors. The numbers made her blood run cold. Thermal imaging showed over 3,000 individual contacts, with more landing craft descending every minute. It was the largest enemy force she'd faced in her entire career. "Captain," she reported, keeping her voice steady through sheer professionalism. "Hostile forces are advancing on all vectors. Current count is 3,000 plus and climbing. They're not even trying for tactical subtlety, just straight overwhelming assault." "Acknowledged," Marcus replied from the Emerald Sword's bridge. "All Republic forces, execute Defensive Plan Alpha. Mech warriors, you are weapons-free. Show them why you don't bring droids to a battle mech fight." Chen's targeting computer lit up with so many hostile markers that the display became a nearly solid mass of red. She took a deep breath, centered herself the way her instructors had taught her decades ago, and selected her first target, a cluster of super battle droids advancing in formation. "Lance Charlie, engage at maximum range," she ordered. "Conserve ammunition, watch your heat, and remember, we're not trying to win this alone. We just need to hold until the Republic springs the trap. Let's make every shot count." Her paired PPCs fired simultaneously, azure lightning lancing across a kilometer of open ground to strike the droid formation. The artificial lightning vaporized the first rank instantly, chain reactions cooking off power cells and creating secondary explosions that took down 24 more droids. Chen's medium lasers added ruby destruction to the carnage, carving through armor like paper. "Splashed 28 hostiles," she reported calmly. "Reacquiring targets." Kowalski's Awesome opened fire with all 3 PPCs in sequence, each shot timed for maximum heat efficiency. The sustained barrage walked through droid ranks like an angry god, each impact creating zones of superheated destruction that nothing could survive. Spider droids attempted to return fire, their heavy blasters scoring hits against the Awesome's armor. But the 80-ton mech's thick plating simply absorbed the damage. "I've got spider droids targeting me," Kowalski reported. "Armor holding, suppressing hostile heavy weapons." Rivera's Atlas AS-7D took position at the center of the defensive line, its 100-ton bulk serving as an unbreakable anchor. His AC-20 autocannon spoke with methodical precision, each thunderous boom erasing a section of the advancing army. AAT tanks that had been providing mobile fire support simply ceased to exist when the massive shells found them, kinetic energy transfers tearing through shields and armor alike. "Ammunition at 70%, Rivera reported. "Engaging targets of opportunity. Captain, these droids don't learn. They keep advancing into our firing lanes like it's a parade ground." "That's because they're programmed for numerical superiority," Park called from his Shadowhawk, which was using its jump jets to reposition constantly, exploiting the mech's mobility to attack from unexpected angles. "They're designed to overwhelm through attrition. Problem is, attrition doesn't work when we're killing them faster than they can advance." But the Separatists had planned for heavy resistance. As the initial waves absorbed the mech warriors' fire, drawing out ammunition and generating heat, the real threats emerged. Hailfire missile platforms rolled forward, their massive rocket pods angling toward the battle mechs. Octuptara tri-droids stalked forward on 3 legs, their heavy laser cannons charging for sustained bombardment. And most concerning, a squadron of vulture droids transformed from flight mode to walking configuration, their integrated weapons systems adding anti-armor firepower to the assault. Multiple heavy contacts. Chen warned, her threat board suddenly filled with priority targets. Missile platforms, tri-droids, vulture droids. They're committing their heavy assets. This is the real push. The Hailfire platforms fired in unison, dozens of missiles streaking toward the Emerald Sword and its defending battle mechs. Chen's point defense lasers, normally used for anti-missile work and battle mech combat, tracked and destroyed 5 missiles, but the rest got through. Explosions walked across the dropship's hull, and the defensive perimeter, shrapnel, and concussive force hammering clone positions. "Dropship taking damage," Marcus reported tersely. "Forward armor compromised, starboard thrusters offline. We're not going to be able to lift off if this continues." "Then we make sure they don't get a second salvo," Chen replied grimly. Her targeting computer locked onto the nearest Hailfire platform, calculating range, wind, and trajectory. Both PPCs fired at maximum range, the azure bolts crossing nearly 2 kilometers to strike the missile platform dead center. The vehicle's remaining missile load detonated in a catastrophic explosion that vaporized the platform and everything within 50 meters. But there were 5 more platforms, and they were reloading. That's when the Republic sprang its trap. From concealed positions, in the surrounding terrain, clone artillery opened fire with devastating precision. Shells arced through the sky, guided by Jedi spotters who used the Force to enhance targeting accuracy. The bombardment landed directly among the advancing droid formations, creating massive kill zones that shredded hundreds of battle droids in seconds. Simultaneously, Republic LAAT gunships swept in from low altitude, their composite beam turrets raking the Separatist flanks. ARC-170 starfighters dove from orbit, proton torpedoes and laser cannons targeting the heavy armor that threatened the mech warriors. And leading them all, Anakin Skywalker's modified Ite-2 starfighter screamed across the battlefield at impossible speeds, destroying one vulture droid after another with preternatural accuracy that seemed to defy physics. All Republic forces, advance! Mace Windu's voice carried across the tactical network. Drive them back from the dropship, protect our allies. Clone troopers emerged from their defensive positions in coordinated squad movements, their training and discipline turning the tide against droid programming. Blue-armored figures with DC-15 blasters providing suppressing fire, while heavy weapons teams targeted the tri-droids with rocket launchers and ion grenades. And through it all, 4 Jedi moved like forces of nature. Mace Windu led the central assault, his purple lightsaber a blur of lethal precision. Battle droids fell in pieces around him, their blaster fire redirected back into their own ranks. Obi-Wan Kenobi coordinated the left flank, his blue blade dancing through attacks while his tactical mind positioned clones for maximum effectiveness. Kit Fisto took the right, his perpetual smile never wavering even as he carved through super battle droids with aquatic grace. And overhead, Anakin's starfighter wove through anti-air fire like a dancer, each pass destroying another heavy asset. Chen watched through her sensors with something approaching awe. Captain, I've seen a lot of warriors in my career, but these Jedi, they're something else. The way they move, the coordination, the tactical awareness. It's like they're seeing the battle before it happens. They're using their Force abilities to predict enemy movements, Marcus replied, watching the tactical display with professional appreciation. Combined with our firepower and clone discipline, it's devastating. The Separatists committed too many forces too quickly. Grievous wanted overwhelming numbers, but all he did was give us a target-rich environment. The battle raged for 2 hours, a grinding meat grinder where droid armies were systematically destroyed by coordinated Republic and mech warrior firepower. Chen's Warhammer ammunition ran dry, forcing her to rely solely on energy weapons. Rivera's Atlas expended all AC-20 rounds and switched to sustained laser fire. Kowalski's heat levels spiked dangerously high, requiring careful management to avoid shutdown. But they held. Through burning heat, dwindling ammunition, and waves of enemies that seemed endless. Lance Charlie held their ground. And around them, Republic forces fought with courage that reminded Marcus why he'd chosen to ally with them. The turning point came when Anakin, reading the battle through the Force, identified General Grievous's command vehicle, a heavily armed OG-9 homing spider droid, directing the assault from a ridge 2 kilometers distant. Captain Reed? Anakin's voice crackled through the comm. I've got Grievous's position marked. If your Atlas can make that shot, we can decapitate their command structure. Rivera checked his ammunition counter. 1 AC-20 round remaining. He'd been saving it for exactly this kind of shot. I've got 1 shell left. Give me targeting data. The coordinates appeared on his HUD. 2,000 meters, elevated position, moving target, wind speed 8 meters per second from the northeast. It was the kind of shot that separated professional mech warriors from amateurs. Rivera took a breath, let his targeting computer calculate, then overrode it and relied on decades of experience. The Defiance killer AC-20 fired its final round. The 120mm shell crossed 2 kilometers in under 3 seconds, its trajectory perfect. It struck General Grievous's spider droid directly in the command module, the kinetic impact collapsing the armored compartment and sending the entire vehicle tumbling backwards off the ridge. "Target hit," Anakin confirmed. "Grievous is down. No, wait. He's climbing out. That cyborg's tougher than he looks. But his command vehicle is destroyed, and the droid army's losing coordination. Without centralized command, the Separatist assault faltered. Battle droids, unable to adapt to the changing tactical situation, continued executing their original programming even as Republic forces systematically destroyed them. The remaining heavy assets attempted to withdraw, but Allied gunships and ARC-170s hunted them down with ruthless efficiency. By late afternoon, the battlefield fell silent except for the crackling of cooling metal and the hiss of venting hydraulics. 3,000 battle droids lay destroyed across the valley. Republic casualties: 42 clone troopers killed, 117 wounded. The Emerald Sword had taken significant damage but remained intact. And Lance Charlie stood victorious, their battle mechs scarred and battered but operational. Chen climbed down from her warhammer on shaking legs, her cooling vest soaked with sweat despite its best efforts. She'd been in her cockpit for 6 continuous hours of combat, and every muscle screamed protest. But they'd won. Against impossible odds, they'd held. Mace Windu approached, his robes dirty and his expression showing rare approval. "Captain Reed, your warriors fought with honor today. The Republic owes you a debt." Marcus surveyed the battlefield, his face grim. "Master Windu, we won because the Separatists were predictable. They threw numbers at a fortified position without proper reconnaissance or tactical flexibility. General Grievous might be a capable commander, but whoever's really running this war wanted this assault to succeed just enough to be convincing, but fail just enough to keep the conflict going. You still believe this war is being manipulated?" Windu said quietly. "I know it is," Marcus replied, "because I've seen this pattern before. In my universe, the succession wars ground on for 300 years because every time peace seemed possible, something would happen to reignite the fighting. Assassinations, false flag operations, manufactured crises, all designed to keep the military-industrial complex profitable and powerful. This war has that same stink, Master Windu. And until you identify who's really pulling the strings, you're just fighting the symptoms, not the disease." Before Windu could respond, urgent reports flooded in from orbit. The Separatist fleet was withdrawing, but not in defeat. In organized retreat, as if the ground assault's failure had been anticipated and planned for. And stranger still, intelligence reported that General Grievous had escaped in a personal starfighter, seemingly content to abandon his army to its fate. They're not trying to win, Anakin realized, landing his starfighter nearby and joining the conversation. This whole assault was, what? A field test? A demonstration? Political theater? Or all of the above, Marcus replied grimly. Whoever's orchestrating this war just learned what battlemechs can do in coordinated defense. They know our capabilities now, and they'll adapt their strategy accordingly. As night fell over Ryloth, Republic engineers worked to repair the Emerald Sword, while clone medics tended to the wounded. The mech warriors gathered in their damaged bay, running post-battle maintenance on machines that had proven their worth once again. "We won," Park said quietly. "Against 3,000 droids, we won." "We survived," Chen corrected. "There's a difference. And Captain Reed's right. Whoever's running this war just got exactly the data they wanted. They know what we can do now. Next time, they'll come prepared." Rivera nodded slowly, patching armor breaches on his atlas. "Then we'd better figure out who they are and stop them before there is a next time. Because I didn't cross universes just to get caught in someone else's forever war." In the shadows of the battlefield, unnoticed by Jedi or clones or mech warriors, a small probe droid recorded everything and transmitted its data to a distant recipient. Darth Sidious received the footage with great interest, studying the battlemech's performance with calculating eyes. "Fascinating," he murmured. "Such power, such potential, and completely outside the Force's influence. Yes, these mech warriors could be very useful indeed, or very dangerous. Time to adjust my plans accordingly." The Clone Wars had entered a new phase, and the Emerald Sword's crew was now firmly entangled in galactic events beyond their comprehension. 3 weeks after the Battle of Ryloth, the Emerald Sword remained grounded while Republic engineers worked alongside the dropship's crew to repair critical systems. The KF drive's damage proved more extensive than initially assessed. The dimensional breach that brought them here had burned out key components that would require specialized manufacturing to replace. But progress was being made, and for the first time since arriving in this strange galaxy, Captain Marcus Reed could see a potential path home. The political situation, however, had become infinitely more complex. "The Senate is divided on what to do about you," Senator Bail Organa explained during a secure holo-conference from Coruscant. The Alderaanian senator had taken personal interest in the Emerald Sword's situation, seeing in them potential allies against the war's escalation. "Some senators view you as heroes who saved Republic forces. Others see you as dangerous unknowns with weapons that could destabilize the galactic balance. And a few—" He paused meaningfully. "A few believe you should be detained indefinitely and your technology seized for the Republic's benefit." Marcus kept his expression neutral, but his crew noticed his jaw tighten. "Senator, let me be clear. Any attempt to seize this vessel or detain my crew will be met with immediate and overwhelming force. We've allied with the Republic willingly, fought your battles, and bled defending your people. But we're not prisoners, and we're not assets to be exploited. We're mech warriors, and we'll die before surrendering our honor." "I understand, Captain, and I agree with your position," Organa replied quickly. "But you need to understand the political reality. Your battlemechs represent military technology centuries beyond what either the Republic or Separatists possess. Chancellor Palpatine himself has expressed interest in meeting you personally. And when the Chancellor expresses interest, it's difficult to refuse." Anakin, listening to the conversation from beside Marcus, frowned. "Senator, the Chancellor's been consolidating power since this war started. Emergency powers, executive orders, military expansion, all necessary for the war effort, but—" He glanced at Obi-Wan, who nodded slightly. "Some of us are concerned about what happens when the war ends, if it ends." "Your concerns are shared by many," Organa said carefully. "Which is why I wanted to speak with Captain Reed directly. Captain, you've seen wars in your own universe, long, grinding conflicts that reshaped civilizations. Based on your experience, what do you see when you look at the Clone Wars?" Marcus considered his answer carefully. This was the question he'd been wrestling with since arriving, the pattern he'd recognized but hadn't fully articulated until now. "Senator, in my universe, the succession wars began as legitimate conflicts over territory, resources, and political succession. But they continued for 3 centuries because, Powerful factions benefited from the fighting. Military contractors needed wars to sell weapons. Intelligence services needed conflicts to justify their existence. Noble houses used warfare to settle old grudges and pursue personal ambitions. Eventually, the reasons for fighting mattered less than the fact that ending the war would disrupt too many profitable arrangements. He paused, letting that sink in. When I look at your clone wars, I see similar patterns. A conflict that started suddenly, with both sides mysteriously well prepared. A clone army commissioned a decade before anyone knew war was coming. Separatist leadership dominated by corporate interests. The Trade Federation, Techno-Union, Banking Clan, all of whom profit from military production. And most telling, a war where neither side seems capable of achieving decisive victory despite massive resource advantages. Every time one side gains ground, something happens to equalize the situation. You're saying someone's ensuring the war continues, Organa stated quietly. I'm saying someone's orchestrating both sides, Marcus corrected. The question is who, and more importantly, why? What's the endgame? Because wars this carefully managed don't end with peace treaties. They end when whoever's pulling the strings decides they've achieved their objective. The holo-conference continued for another hour, with Organa sharing intelligence and Marcus providing analysis based on his universe's brutal history. By the end, they'd reached a grim conclusion. The clone wars were being manipulated, likely from the highest levels of either Republic or Separatist leadership, and uncovering the truth would require resources and investigation that the Jedi Council was too overstretched to provide. There's one more thing, Organa said before disconnecting. Captain, the Senate has scheduled a vote on extraordinary military assets oversight. If it passes, it would give the Chancellor authority to requisition or detain any military technology deemed essential to the war effort. The vote is scheduled for 3 days from now. I'll do everything in my power to prevent its passage. But you should be prepared for the possibility that the Republic you've allied with may officially become a threat to your freedom. After the transmission ended, Marcus sat in silence for a long moment. His XO, Commander Lisa Park, spoke what everyone was thinking. If that vote passes, we're leaving. Immediately. Alliance or no alliance. Agreed, Marcus said quietly. But we can't leave yet. The KF drive isn't operational. We need at least 2 more weeks of work before we can attempt a dimensional breach. And even then, there's no guarantee we'll end up back in our universe. We might just jump to another strange reality. Then we buy ourselves 2 weeks, Lieutenant Chen said from the doorway, having joined the meeting uninvited but welcome. Captain, we've made friends here. Skywalker, Kenobi, the clone troopers who fought beside us. They're good people caught in a bad situation. Maybe we can help them before we leave. Help them how? Kowalski asked skeptically. We're 4 battle mechs and a damaged dropship. We can win battles, sure, but we can't reform an entire galactic government or stop a conspiracy we can barely understand. No, but we can provide evidence, Obi-Wan Kenobi said, entering the conference room with Mace Windu beside him. The 2 Jedi had been granted access to the Emerald Sword as trusted allies, and they'd clearly been listening. Captain Reed, Master Windu and I have been conducting our own investigation into the war's origins. We've found discrepancies, financial records that don't add up, communications between Separatist and Republic officials that predate the war, evidence that someone high in the Republic hierarchy has been in contact with Count Dooku. But we can't pursue these leads while commanding armies in the field. You need someone outside the normal chain of command, Marcus realized. Someone who doesn't answer to the Senate or the Jedi Council. Someone with advanced sensors, intelligence-gathering capabilities, and the firepower to defend themselves if the conspiracy tries to silence them. "We're asking you to stay," Windu said bluntly. "Not permanently. We understand you want to go home. But for a few more weeks, while you complete your repairs, help us investigate. Use your dropship's sensors to monitor communications. Analyze patterns with your tactical computers. And if we identify who's really running this war," he paused significantly, "then we can work together to stop them." It was a dangerous proposition. Investigating powerful conspiracies got people killed in any universe. But Marcus thought about the clone troopers who'd fought beside them, the Jedi who'd shown them honor, and the civilians caught in a war that served only mysterious masters' agendas. He thought about his own universe's history and how the succession wars might have ended sooner if someone had exposed the manipulators early. "All right," Marcus decided. "We'll help. But on one condition, when we identify the conspiracy, you let us handle the military response. I've seen what happens when Jedi try to arrest Sith Lords. Your force powers and lightsabers are impressive, but sometimes you need overwhelming firepower and zero hesitation. That's what mech warriors bring." "Agreed," Windu said after a moment's consideration. "Welcome to the most dangerous investigation in the galaxy, Captain Reed." Over the following weeks, the Emerald Sword became an intelligence hub, its advanced sensors monitoring communications across Ryloth and beyond. Republic engineers continued repair work, unknowingly providing cover for the investigation. And slowly, meticulously, patterns emerged. Commander Stone's intelligence section identified encrypted communications between Chancellor Palpatine's office and known separatist worlds. The Emerald Sword's computer banks analyzed financial transactions, revealing that key military contractors were selling to both sides simultaneously. Jedi investigation teams followed leads provided by the mech warriors' surveillance, uncovering evidence of systemic manipulation. And then, during a routine monitoring session, Chen's communications officer intercepted something extraordinary. A real-time holoconference between Count Dooku and someone in the Republic's Senate discussing military operations, clone casualties, and future orchestrated setbacks designed to prolong the war. The conspiracy had a name: Darth Sidious, and according to the intercept, he was operating from Coruscant itself, hidden in plain sight at the highest levels of Republic government. "We've got him," Marcus said quietly, studying the data with grim satisfaction. "Whoever this Sidious is, he's running both sides. Dooku answers to him, and based on the communication patterns..." He pulled up an analysis that made even the Jedi look shocked. "He's in daily contact with Chancellor Palpatine's office. Either Palpatine is the Sith Lord, or he's being manipulated by someone in his immediate circle." "Palpatine," Windu breathed, the pieces finally falling into place. The emergency powers, the war's convenient timing, the way every crisis seemed to grant him more authority. He's been playing us from the beginning. "Not just you," Anakin said, his voice tight with barely contained fury. "All of us. The clones, the Jedi, the entire Republic. We've Continue 1435 been fighting a war designed to destroy everything the Jedi stand for and transform the Republic into something else entirely. An empire, Obi-Wan realized. He's building an empire, and we've been his instruments." The evidence was overwhelming, damning and dangerous beyond measure. Exposing Palpatine would trigger political chaos, possible civil war, and the Sith Lord's direct wrath. But leaving him in power meant condemning the galaxy to continued manipulation and eventual tyranny. We need to act, Windu decided. The Council must arrest Palpatine immediately before he realizes we know. Captain Reed, can your lance support a Jedi strike team on Coruscant? Marcus checked his repair schedules. The Emerald Sword can achieve orbit in 12 hours. We can be on Coruscant in 3 days. But Master Windu, are you sure about this? You're talking about arresting the Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Republic based on intercepted communications and financial analysis. If you're wrong, or if you fail, the political consequences will be catastrophic. If we do nothing, the consequences will be worse, Windu replied firmly. The Force is with us. And now, so are mech warriors. Together, we'll end this conspiracy and restore the Republic. As the Emerald Sword prepared for its most dangerous mission, Lance Charlie performed final maintenance on their battle mechs. They'd come to this galaxy by accident, been drawn into a war they didn't understand, and now found themselves at the center of a galactic conspiracy. It wasn't what any mech warrior signed up for, but it was. Chen reflected as she climbed into her Warhammer's cockpit. Exactly the kind of impossible situation where honor demanded action. They'd chosen this fight. They'd stand beside the Jedi. And whatever happened on Coruscant, the galaxy would remember the day mech warriors and Jedi confronted the Sith together. Marcus stood on the Emerald Sword's bridge, watching Ryloth recede as they burned for orbit. His crew was ready. His mech warriors were prepared. The Republic's bravest warriors stood with them. Ahead lay Coruscant, confrontation with a Sith Lord who'd orchestrated galactic war, and a battle that would determine the fate of billions. Captain, his navigator reported, we're clear of Ryloth's gravity well. Hyperspace jump to Coruscant is ready on your command. Marcus took a breath, thinking of home. His universe, his people, the life they'd left behind. They'd get back there eventually. The KF drive would be repaired, they'd find a way to breach dimensions again, and the Emerald Sword would return to the familiar conflicts of the Inner Sphere. But first, they had a war to end and a conspiracy to burn down. Because that's what mech warriors did. They fought for honor, protected the innocent, and stood against tyrants no matter what universe they found themselves in. Engage hyperdrive, Marcus commanded. Let's finish this. The Emerald Sword vanished into hyperspace, carrying 4 battle mechs and their pilots toward destiny. Behind them, Ryloth's people looked to the stars with gratitude. Ahead, on Coruscant, a Sith Lord's plans were about to face an element he'd never anticipated. Warriors from another reality who didn't fear the dark side, couldn't be sensed through the Force, and brought firepower that made even ancient Sith weapons seem primitive. The Clone Wars had been carefully orchestrated for years, but no one had planned for battle mechs. No one had anticipated mech warriors, and no conspiracy, no matter how carefully laid, could account for the variable of honor-bound warriors willing to die rather than abandon their principles. Darth Sidious was about to discover that some battles couldn't be won through manipulation or Force powers. Some battles required something the Sith had forgotten: genuine courage in the face of overwhelming darkness. And mech warriors had that in abundance. The Emerald Sword's journey through the Clone Wars had transformed from desperate survival into purposeful mission. What began as a catastrophic accident, a dropship torn from its universe and hurled into an alien galaxy, had evolved into something greater. A convergence of warriors from different realities united by shared principles of honor, duty, and protection of the innocent. Captain Marcus Reed and Lance Charlie had proven that battle mech technology, mech warrior training, and the codes forged through 300 years of warfare could stand alongside Jedi philosophy and clone trooper discipline. They'd shown the galaxy that raw firepower combined with tactical precision could turn the tide of battles. But more importantly, they demonstrated that true strength came not from weapons, but from unwavering principles. The Republic had gained unexpected allies. Warriors who couldn't be manipulated through the Force, predicted by Sith visions, or broken by political pressure. The Jedi had found kindred spirits who understood the burden of serving as warriors while holding to higher ideals. And the galaxy had witnessed something unprecedented. The fusion of two realities' military doctrines, creating a force that neither alone could achieve. But the hardest battles lay ahead. Confronting Palpatine meant challenging a Sith Lord who'd manipulated galactic events for decades, who commanded both sides of the war, and who possessed dark side powers beyond mortal comprehension. The mech warriors would face Force lightning, Sith assassins, and political machinations designed to turn their victory into defeat. Their battle mechs would stand against enemies who could foresee attacks, move with supernatural speed, and wield weapons that cut through almost any material. Yet Marcus Reed felt no fear as the Emerald Sword traveled through hyperspace toward Coruscant. His lance was ready, his crew was prepared, and most importantly, they fought not for contracts or salvage rights, but for something more fundamental, the belief that some evils must be opposed, regardless of cost or universe. The KF drive would eventually be repaired. They would find a way home, back to the inner sphere's familiar conflicts and the succession war's ongoing struggles. But when they returned, they'd carry with them the knowledge that honor transcended reality itself, that warriors could find common cause across dimensional barriers, and that sometimes the most important battles were the ones you chose rather than the ones fate chose for you. Somewhere in the hyperspace tunnel between Ryloth and Coruscant, Lieutenant Sarah Chen ran final diagnostics on her warhammer and smiled grimly. They'd crossed universes, survived impossible odds, and stood against forces that defied everything they'd been trained to fight. When they finally returned home, the stories they'd tell would seem like impossible fiction. But they'd lived it. They'd proven it. And they'd changed two galaxies in the process. The Clone Wars had been orchestrated to destroy the Republic and birth an empire. But the conspirators hadn't accounted for 4 fusion reactors, 4 dedicated mech warriors, and the unstoppable force of warriors who refused to compromise their honor. Darth Sidious's carefully laid plans were about to meet the unexpected variable of Battletech in Star Wars. And the galaxy would never be the same.